Hey, everybody. I'm Jeanne Troy,
And I'm Jessica Whitmore.
and welcome to J Squared. This is a product and promotion of DAZA Development. And what we will do is share our tidbits of everything nonprofit and development and board strategy and anything you were thinking of and maybe didn't want to share that we may have the answers to and may actually generate some questions in your mind as we talk. So this is our what's the word? Our
Yes.
inaugural podcast session episode. So there will be errors. We're not going to go over them. We're not going to edit them out. We are who we are, and you are who you are. So a little bit about us. Jessica, how about you?
Sure. I have been in the nonprofit world since 2000-ish and kind of started in a position that kind of went sideways and fell into grants. Had a wonderful, wonderful mentor who took me under his wing and kind of guided me along for a couple of years. So started working in grants then and discovered that I really enjoyed it and loved it, and then decided to have children. So step back from working full time, and I was able to, over the course of my kids growing up and being homeschooled, I was able to also develop my career and my writing. So over the course of a couple decades, I have written grants, which is what I mostly do now. Also written hard news, soft news, magazines, blogs, social media, anything that can be written. I have written in some way, and I also am an adjunct professor at a private college teaching communication courses and writing courses. And I had an interpersonal communication course that I taught for a while too. So that is a very quick summary. And I'm sure as we continue along this podcast journey, you'll get more. That was too quick.
You left out the most important thing.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So because I decided I was bored a couple of years ago, I am in the final stages of my PhD in leadership from Alvernia University. I am studying the role of coincidence in a nonprofit leader's journey, and that's all I can really say right now. I actually finished my coding this morning, so I will be retelling stories in narrative format and pulling it in together with scholarly research. So I'm very excited at what I'm starting to see come together, but can't talk about it yet.
And I think that we should also add that she's been with DAZA Development 3 years.
I think it's three. It's almost going on four, I
It's going
think.
okay,
I
going on
think.
four.
You know
So
what? It has been a fun journey that I lose track of how much time has gone by.
yeah, well, we should all lose track of time. A little bit about my background. I actually, nobody wakes up and thinks they're and says, "Gee, I think I'll be a fundraiser." Most of us stumble into it. I actually have 2 degrees in library science. I have a bachelor's of education in media services, which is library science, and I have my master's in library science. And it was 2 courses into my master's, 2 courses into it, 2 courses shy of getting my master's that I realized, I don't really think library science is for me. So anybody that really knows me, and that's, in the whole world scheme, that's not a lot of people, but my immediate people are like, "You're a librarian." Well, actually, yeah, I was, but I just knew it wasn't for me. So I did a whole bunch of different things and ended up in nonprofit, been in it for almost 30 years on the side of the table, except for the last 5, where I am the one asking for money for the different nonprofits. On the side of the table that I'm on with Jessica, we actually help nonprofits guide them into what makes them a strong nonprofit, give them the foundational opportunities and skills and policies and knowledge, work with them in every facet of nonprofit. And there are a lot of facets to nonprofits. You think a diamond has a bunch of facets? Got nothing on nonprofits.
And just when you think you're figuring out one part of nonprofits, like there's a whole other part that opens up.
I mean, it's really something. And I've been very lucky to work with Jessica, and we've done some conference presentations and we've done webinars. So when we talk and we discuss and chatter, we have good time, because fundraising and development is challenging enough, especially now, challenging enough without taking some time out to enjoy the wins and to talk about how we could have done things better and things like that. So that's why we're here. We are by no means the end all be all to this, but we have learned things, the both of us.
And I'd add, my philosophy is also life has a lot of hard things that happen and go on.
Yep.
And a lot of nonprofits work with some very, very serious topics and services that they provide. And so we need to find humor and lightheartedness in the areas that we can, because otherwise it becomes very overwhelming. So I'm all about laughter and having fun and being serious and everything like that and getting things done. But also you have to enjoy it. You have to have fun.
You do. And I'm thinking some of the different groups that I worked with and worked for, and yeah, there were some pretty heavy topics. But even then, even there, and one was a grief center locally. Even there, they had air hockey tables and they had foosball tables and they had padded rooms where you could take a wiffle ball bat and just beat the living heck out of a big, weight thingy that like a what do you call the things that go back and forth? I can't think of that. When we were growing up, anyway, you would have the chance.
Little ball things that go back and
Well,
forth?
it was a stuffed figure. I can't think of it. A weeble wobble, like a weeble wobble.
I was thinking
in this
pinata,
case,
but
well, and so even then, as staff members at that particular nonprofit, the seriousness of what the families were going through, we as staff had to let off steam. So in the world of nonprofit fundraising and development and leadership, you have to be able to find the humor, as Jessica said, because if you don't, it will drag you down and you won't do anybody any good if you're down in the dregs of being, with the heaviness of what you're doing. So our philosophy at DAZA, but even just with Jess and I, is that you got to find the fun. You got to laugh, and we both like to laugh, and we generally have a good time when we're together. It's infectious, actually. Like, it's just a good time. So we are working on our logo.
We were playing around before we started recording, just so you can kind of have some background information. We were playing around with it. We have a wonderful logo, but it was too much around our heads. So we want to make sure that we give our amazing graphic designer a chance to kind of revise some things before we introduce it to you all.
Yes. So hopefully the next time we meet, we'll have episode 2. We'll have our unveiling of the revised logo. But in this particular one today, 2026 is really not all that far away. And so I know, right? Like, who thought I'd be saying, oh, I have my 2026 calendar. That's a scary thought. So as nonprofits and people in the nonprofit world, you ought to be now planning for 2026. I know the holidays are the year end and try to generate as much revenue and income and this and that, and Giving Tuesday and Black Friday, and what's the one for Saturday? Small Business Saturday.
Small Business Saturday. Yep.
You want to do all that, but you got to be ready for 2026. Yeah. So Jessica, what are some of your tips?
Well, because I mostly work in grants, and the interesting thing is I was actually talking to somebody the other day and I was like, I'm a grant writer. But anybody who describes themselves as a grant writer is more than a grant writer, because it's not just writing grants. There's so much more that goes into it, and the background and figuring out different aspects of organizations. So if I was looking ahead to 2026 right now, I'd actually be looking at what my spring of 2026 or my summer of 2026 is going to look like, programming wise, funding wise, looking at that fall 2026. So if you're just now starting to look at 2026, you may feel like you're behind, but you can't really let yourself feel like you're behind.
Right.
You have to like trick yourself that I'm not behind, even though I really feel like I'm behind. But really kind of make that first quarter kind of quick and then look ahead for it. I mean, people have different ways they do it. Some executive directors come up with a theme for the year. Like, this is what our theme needs to be, and we need to focus on this word, or everything that we do with our mission, our funding is, going to go through this lens. That's one way some people do it. Other people just keep on rotating their calendars through and, looking at it that way. But you
And
have to do
even with
something
a
that moves
theme,
you
though,
forward.
Jess, even with a theme
Yeah,
and a special thing to tie you through, you still have to have a plan.
you do.
And if you don't have a plan, what's that phrase? If you,
Well, my favorite
well,
phrase,
I know.
favorite phrase is
I don't fear too.
basically your lack of planning does not constitute an emergency for me. That's not the exact way. That's my favorite phrase. That's not the one you're thinking of though.
No, I was thinking if plan to fail, fail to plan, or fail to
Yeah.
succeed, or something like that. But I mean, I'm a firm believer as I sit here surrounded by a desk that looks like a hurricane hit it. But if you chunk things out, and that goes for planning, so chunk out the first quarter. And you're right. When you're writing grants, you're not writing them now for the end of the year or to get money in January or decisions in February. You're writing them for spring and summer. So there's that lag that you need to account for in your plans if you properly do it. I mean, I know there's a lot of nonprofits who crisis fundraise, and for them, I mean, I'm thinking of one in particular in our area, but it works for them. I don't understand it honestly.
It's a very unique way to fundraise.
Yeah,
It should not be your long-term strategy.
no, it should not. And you just have to think about where you are now. Where do you want to be in the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter? Where do you want to be at the end of the second quarter, which is really 6 months into the year? Of course, and your fiscal years may be different since there's 3 of them. You've got calendar, July 1 to June 30, and then October 1 to September 30, which is the federal year. But if you don't have that plan, and that requires meeting with your staff, meeting with your board, meeting with everybody that's involved in making the organization to get it to go forward. So it's not just you, the ED, or you, the development director. It's you as an organization.
And you have to have patience because you're going to have people, and I say this because even working on grants, there's a wide variety of people that our team works with, a wide variety of ways people look at the world and look at planning. You're going to have the people who are really great at the huge ideas. And then you start to ask for the little details that are so important, and they make it upset. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you asking me these questions? You're destroying my whole thing that I've envisioned. Or you have people who are looking at all the little details, and the other person's going, but how are you getting to the big picture? Because all you're focused on are these little weeds, and we need the big picture. It takes both. It takes the person that sees the big picture and the person that sees the trees and the little details and the leaves. But you have to like blend it together. And you're going to get frustrated with each other in that process, which is normal. Conflict is normal. It's okay. But you have to like work through it. So those of you who are listening who love the big idea, be patient with the people who want all the details. Those of you with all the details, be patient with the people who want the big ideas. It takes both.
It's funny. This development world, like I said, nobody wakes up one day and decides that they want to be in development and fundraise. Most of us fall into it. I came from a background of sales. I was a lobbyist for 4 years. I worked for a large healthcare conglomerate here in central PA, which is, by the way, where we're located. Jessica gets to split her time a couple different places.
Who knows where I am?
Yeah. Talk about planning.
Yeah.
So, we don't necessarily think that. But I will say, in the planning of everything, keep the passion that you have for your organization. Because if you don't have that passion for that organization, then it's time to leave.
And everything has to go back to the mission.
Correct.
If you're getting stumbled in and what you're trying to plan, or somebody has a great idea and you're trying to figure out how it fits in, go back to that mission, go back to that vision statement and make sure that you're in line with it some way. Because if you're trying to plan something that doesn't fit within your mission, you're going to run into a lot more problems than just trying to come up with the details and the plan itself.
And that's critical. And that plan could be a strategic long plan. That's a whole different topic for a whole different day. It could be a development plan, which springs from the strategic long range plan. But a plan, a plan is your map of where you're going for the year. Well,
And that plan may just start with post-it notes on a wall or scribbles somewhere. I mean, I think sometimes everybody gets overwhelmed by these big concepts and really bring it down to the basic. I mean, we talk about it all the time, Jeanne. You got to
yeah,
keep it simple. Bring it down to the basics to get that basic started. And then you can keep on expanding it. And then you can build on it. Because if you're thinking, oh, I've got to create a strategic plan, but I don't even know what I'm going to do in January,
right.
you kind of got to step back and take it piece by piece. And if it starts with post-it notes,
It does start
it
with
starts
post-it
with
notes,
post-it
and
notes.
normally on my wall would be gigantic post-it notes of clients whose strategic long-range plan I'm working on. In this case, they're all tucked away in a closet. But a plan is not written in stone. A plan is fluid. I was talking to a young gentleman today. I'm in the local Rotary Club, and he just got engaged. He's a great guy. And he's like, I got engaged and we're buying a house and we're doing this and blah, blah, blah. And I quietly said, and what happens if something happens and that plan changes? And he looked at me. He said, but no buts. What happens if the plan changes? What are you going to do? Same with development, fundraising, and nonprofits. As much as I hate to say this upcoming phrase, we are in unprecedented times. Never thought I'd be saying that. But if you have a plan, and think back to when COVID happened, who knew 5 years ago that the country would shut down, the world basically would shut down? Who knew? But you know what? Most of us pivoted. Most of us came up with an alternative plan, and look at that. We're still here.
And you know
So,
what I find fascinating about the whole COVID thing is that in grant applications, funders will specifically say, do not let us know what you have done to advance your organization. Do not reference COVID. And it bothers me when I see that because COVID made such a big difference for nonprofits that it's still an underlying conversational topic of how we've gotten from A to B. And I just find that fascinating that
and I don't know that we're ever going to get away from it. I mean, from the ramifications of what COVID did and how it changed everything. I mean, I was at all of all things Rotary president at the time that COVID struck. So my year that I envisioned as president of being out and about in the community and doing this and out the window, completely Zoomified. If we did meet in person, it was probably 20 feet between everything. So it was not what I planned for,
mm.
you know?
My world during COVID, I've always worked remote since I stepped away to raise our kids. And so for me, the remote part was not unique. Um, but what was hard for me as a writer was everybody, all the clients I worked for wanted writing. They wanted to show that they knew what they were doing and they were on top of it and they had things lined up to handle it. So I was watching a lot of my friends enjoying like, oh, look, I get time off because, this, or I'm balancing this, or we're doing this, or whatever. And I remember writing so much. I said to my husband, I am so tired. I was writing about the weirdest things. But yeah, it shifted so much for everybody.
It did. And I think we learned from it. And I find it interesting in what you do that funders realize that, oh, nonprofits need operating money to stay in bit. Well, no kidding. We need operating money. Hello.
But then they shifted it again. A couple of years ago, they've shifted it back. And that does bother me because one of the biggest questions that nonprofits have is how do I get funding for paying for my internet and paying for my printer and my paper
Right.
and paying for the electricity? Because those are all things we need to do to provide for our programming, but nobody wants to fund it. So that was a period of time where organizations and funders had an opportunity to see what it really took to literally keep the lights on for organizations, and it bothers me that they've shifted
That
that
they
back
went
in
back.
some ways.
Yeah, that they
Yeah.
went back. So, all this to say in this free flow of conversation here, you plan a wedding. Mostly you plan to have children, and when that's going to happen, surprises happen. But you need a plan to be not to be successful, to move ahead, because success for organizations is different. Success is maybe getting a grant for a specific thing, or success is landing a large donor. So it's opportunities, but without a plan, guaranteed, you're not going to go anywhere.
And you
Guaranteed.
can't just expect you you
Money,
can't just expect things to fall into place by magic, by whatever, term you want to throw in there for it. It takes effort. I mean, there are random things that happen, but sometimes they're not that random. So yeah, you have to have a plan, even if it's a basic plan, even if it's a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan Z.
step by step, and you have to make sure your board is on board with the plan too. And that's where again, these are all topics for down the road, but general overview.
Can we talk about what a board does? Because I feel like the role of a
Want to
board
talk about
in
what a
this,
board does now?
yeah, just can we put it like if you could put it in two or three basic sentences? Because I think there's a misunderstanding sometimes about what board members do. Like, oh yes, I love this organization. I'm going to sign up and be a board member. I don't have to do anything. I just have to go to board meetings. I get to drink fresh coffee. I might get some food on the side. I get to, talk with my friends. Oh, I'm supposed to do things like in
So,
2 or 3 sentences.
well, there's a very common phrase, but it really is more than that. Boards have responsibilities, two basic ones. They are to give money themselves to support an organization, which ties into what Jessica does with grants. Funders want to see board support, not time, not volunteering at an event, actual board financial support. So
Even if it's a dollar, it doesn't matter. They
even
don't
if it's
even
a
care
dollar,
how much. They don't care how much. It's the
correct.
percentage that's really important.
Although it should be impactful to the board member.
Yes.
I will say that. The other phrase that goes along with the give money is to get money. They ought to be capable, comfortable, and able to ask a peer or a colleague or someone they know in your community to ask for money. Because if you're going to ask for money, you darn well better be supporting the organization that you're asking money for on behalf of that organization. So it's also keeping oversight of the organization, but it is not telling the executive director or this development staff person or anybody how to do their jobs. There's ought to be an inherent trust. Again, another topic for another
Yes,
time.
it's a whole other topic.
That's a whole nother one coming up in the second episode. But, board members, it's work. It isn't just, oh, look, my name's on the side of a piece of paper and everybody can see it. No, you need to help raise money.
And it's not, as we heard somebody describe, some people think board members it's a night job. Like you just do it after hours. And that's not always the case. Like there's
Yeah. So,
ongoing.
and we'll dive into, I mean, boards are a never ending source of information and conversation.
Yes.
But if you have a board and you have an active board, kudos to you, because an active board helps you get your job done and raises the money. If you have a board, like I said, whose name's just on that paper, then you need to take a hard look at them. And, we can
more on that later.
Yeah, more on that. So, I mean, this is just to kind of give you a flavor today, because we're coming up actually, Jessica, on a half hour.
Are we really? Wow.
Yeah, we are.
I wish Zoom had like a little time thing that you could watch
I'm checking out my watch here. We want to keep these informative, light, fun, but hope that you take a nugget away. Like I'll give an example, and this is a fun example. Jess and I were at a conference, a statewide conference the other week, and I learned all about bubbles in coffee. Jessica, why don't you share about that?
Sure, you can tell. So My brain collects random facts that are just very random half the time in the world, and I have to decide, like, is it important to share this random fact that's flowing through my head, or do I just let it just stay in my head? And so this one I shared. We were sitting around the table with some new people that we had met. We were having a great conversation over breakfast, and I don't remember how it came up, but the coffee at this conference was really, really great, and I could tell that because it bubbled on the top. And so when you pour your coffee or you're getting it out of the dispenser, it has to do with the freshness of um
Bean?
the beans, I was gonna say the cocoa beans, the coffee beans, and the process of when they're ground for the coffee grounds and the oxidization of them. So the more bubbles you have on your coffee when you fill your coffee cup, the fresher the coffee is. So
And
when I'm at hotels, we travel quite often. I'm at hotels and be like, oh, this is very fresh coffee. Or, oh, I'll say to my husband, this isn't very good coffee. We need to go find coffee somewhere else. So,
little tidbits, whether it's life's tidbits like bubbles and coffee, or a tidbit about your board, or a tidbit about grants, which, there's so many parts and parcels to grants, and that's Jessica's area of expertise. We just want to share what we've learned over the years. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong, just makes it ours.
yep, that's right. And
That's
prompt you to
fun
think
too.
and prompt you to think a little bit. We don't expect you to take our ideas and run with them, but
If you
to
do, let
prompt
us
you to
know.
have, yes, but to prompt further conversations too,
Yeah.
at your
So
personal and professional levels.
we're gonna keep this one short for the first time, and it's actually, like I said, it's 40 minutes now, so it's pretty cool.
I'm impressed.
The next one, so be on the lookout. The next one is Tuesday, November 18th, and that topic will be social capital. And that's something that Jessica and I have talked about a lot recently, over the past couple months. And we'll explain what that is. And that might be a little bit longer. And, throughout the course of these podcasts, we will be bringing some guests in to talk about different things as pertaining. But, we just want to thank you for listening and for taking notes and reaching out to us. I guess there'll be contact information on this. I don't know. We have to talk about that.
We got to figure that out too. If not, you can find us.
Yeah. DAZA
We're both on
Development, Cumberland,
LinkedIn. We're
PA.
both active on LinkedIn. That's a good way to
But
find us. Right?
thank you. Thank you for letting us in and for sharing. And Jessica, always, it's just a ton of fun with you.
Yes, it's so much fun with you, Jeanne. And yes,
Thanks.
thank you everybody for listening to us.
Yeah. So thanks. And we'll talk to you soon. See you next month.